she got that, that was great. 'Cause if she was barely moving, her bed would vibrate and come back to sleep.
I think he never woke up.
Hey, Chris.
Thanks, brother.
Oh, God.
Right, y'all ready?
Like a model top, but this is totally different.
Sorry, y'all.
Yeah, see, that's why if you had Berkeley Friday, you would not.
Oh, yeah,
That's why Hillary is on
Everybody
the
knows
That's
that.
probably true.
Okay. I actually made it big so I can read this stuff. All right, call the budget committee to order. Mr. Gamendi, would you be so kind as to lead us in a prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and for its many blessings. Thank you, dear God, for your Son Jesus. In him we have all hope. Thank you for this coming together here tonight, dear Lord. We pray that you would help each of us to make decisions that would bring you honor and glory. Pray, dear Lord, for all those that are sick and things that duty binds us to pray for. We'll be mindful to give you the praise forever. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. All right, approval of the agenda. Thank you, sir. Second was,
Second.
thank you, Josh. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. As always, anything that passed unanimously on budget waives a second reading as that was needed. We now need to elect a committee chairman. Open up nominations right
Mr.
now.
Chairman, I make a motion that you, Mr. Chris Tatum, remains chairman.
Appreciate it.
Second.
Any other nominations? All right.
Nomination be closed.
Thank you, sir. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank y'all very much. I appreciate it. I consider it an honor to continue to serve this way. Now entertain a motion for vice chair.
I make a motion, Mr. Foster, remain vice chair.
Second.
Any others? You accept it, Jerry? Okay.
So much work, Chris, for you. I don't know if I can handle it yet.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Passed unanimously. As always with recognition in public, if somebody has something they want to talk about, raise your hand and we'll get to you. It's the easiest way.
Chris, under your report, I think he's going to add Mr. Graves.
Yep. And then also, do we have John on there further down?
He was going to be, under my report is item
You want to put
B.
him on? Okay, I didn't know if you want to do him under yours or mine.
It doesn't matter, so
Okay.
we can get to him.
Okay, all right. Entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Passed unanimously. Thank you. All right. Only thing I'll say on mine for the Resource Authority, we thought we were going to have to move up. One or two of the municipalities are not quite where they need to be, so we will have to wait another month.
Okay.
And so there's absolutely no sense discussing how we're going to put. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, and that is one thing, I'm sorry, I forgot, we need to look at the meeting date, because in October, that will be a holiday.
Yep. Right now legislative is set for that Tuesday. Is everybody comfortable with that Tuesday, the 12th? If you're not, okay. Will that work, Ms. Denham? Okay.
At 6 o'clock, like you normally do?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. And on the Resource Authority, once the municipalities figure out exactly what they want to do, we'll be in a little better position so we can make some definitive decisions about how we want to pay for it. Nothing like pushing it right to the wire. And Mr. Graves?
Yes.
All right. The Water Subcommittee has not met yet. Commissioner Taylor is working on that. He's got to get in touch with the different cities, and it's a little bit of a struggle because Westmoreland's mayor stepped down, so he will hopefully have that this month or next. In the interim, Mr. Graves has been very diligent in trying to get Castellian Springs to the front of the line, so he would like to present that to us right now.
Well, actually, you can hand those out. Give them to us.
You go right ahead.
Y'all can look over that, kind of tells what we're gonna do. And this is our engineer, Brian Griffin, and he's gonna do most of the talking, of course. I just got this, we got pressure problems, so has Westmoreland and Portland up on the ridge, I call it, back in the day. And we're in the process of looking to build a water tank and transmission line from down under in Bethpage. And we're trying to upgrade a couple roads that needs upgraded to loop in this process and this proposal to y'all from the recovery money. I guess that's about all. I'll let Brian go ahead.
Thank you.
And thanks for having us tonight, letting us come and present this information to you. You've got a cover sheet, it's a project summary sheet. So we'll just start at the front and work our way through. Hopefully, shouldn't take too long. So on the front, there's 3 projects listed. And as we go through, there's cost estimate breakdowns of these 3 projects. The 3 projects total $4.5 million, with the largest project being obviously the transmission line, the water tank, and the booster station. The water tank being up on the ridge, as Steve said. These projects are needed in order for Castine Springs Bethpage to be able to serve their existing clients. And this is primarily driven by elevation issues. And without these improvements, without doing at least some of these improvements, sometime in the near future, they won't be able to serve their existing customers, particularly in the higher elevations on the ridge, which would force them to look at imposing some type of moratorium on future development. And as we all know, with this unprecedented growth in Sumner County, it's obviously something they're trying to avoid. So the first thing we'll talk about is the water tank and the transmission line and booster station. And then we'll talk about the 2 roads, Rogana Road and Reese Road. And essentially these roads loop existing roads in areas where they have pressure and flow problems at the time. During peak demands, these areas at these higher elevations, they see lower pressure because they're further in the system, and looping these lines would increase the flow to these areas. Wouldn't help the pressure problems at 2 in the morning, but it'd help it at 8 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon, because there'd be additional water there. So let's talk a little bit about the tank that we're proposing, the 3.6 million. So if you turn the page, this is the type of tank that we're looking at building, just an elevated storage tank. I actually designed this tank many years ago over in the Cab Utility District, but that's identical to what they would do. That's a 500,000 gallon tank. They're looking to build a 300,000 gallon tank. Presently, Castine Springs has 250,000 gallons of storage up there, but it's in 2 ground level tanks. So they're looking to build a 300,000 gallon tank. That's the bottom of this tank is going to be about 100 feet higher than the top of the 2 existing ground level tanks they have up there, which would add 40 pounds of pressure to the top of the ridge, which would take their low pressure areas and move them to about 60 to 65 pounds instead of 20 to 25 where they're at now. So that being said, we can look at this initial cost estimate. Essentially, the ridge area is the northern 1/3 of their distribution system. As you can see, the largest cost, believe it or not, is actually not the tank, it's the transmission line. There's about 4 miles of 12-inch transmission line that has to be constructed to accommodate this tank. And the reason it's 12-inch line is because in the future, we would look at building another 200,000 to 300,000 gallon tank as growth dictates. It might be 15, 20 years down the road. We build it right beside the existing tank. So you're putting a 12-inch line in now. So you're building your transmission line once. Putting a 12-inch now to serve them 20 years from now when they need an additional tank. So essentially, it's about 4 miles of transmission line from where the proposed tank is off of Mount Vernon Road at the top of the hill and Highway 31D. That would be the location. Again, a 300,000 gallon tank for now, 200,000 to 300,000 gallon tank in the future, and we're going to upgrade the existing booster station. They have a booster station on Mount Vernon Road, and we would just simply take the pumps out and put larger pumps in. So the total cost for that is $3.6 million.
So will we be able to reuse those small pumps somewhere? Or are they just done?
You know, it's possible that they might be able to use them somewhere else. They have 6, 7 other different booster stations, but we've not gotten that far into it yet. But no, they would not throw the pumps away. they would try to, 90% yes, they figure out something to do with pumps. So that's the big project. So.
Can I ask you, is
Sure.
it okay
Oh,
if
yeah,
I interrupt?
yeah, anybody that needs,
Yeah, I'm sorry, does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. The transmission lines, don't really understand a lot of the flow of this. So those are those incoming water that would bring water to the tank, or is that the transmission?
Well, the transmission line, you got two things going on. You've got to be able to get enough water. So you've got this existing pump station that sits right here. It basically sits right in the middle of Highway 31E at the top of the hill where you put the new tank. So you got to have a line big enough, transmission line, you got to have a line big enough to get the water to the pump station. Then you got to have a line big enough to pump the water to the tank. So obviously the water that you're pumping to the tank is the same amount of water that's coming to it through the transmission lines. So they're the same size.
Okay.
But it would be a dedicated line that you wouldn't put services on. It would just be to fill the tank.
Got it. Okay.
And it would probably go cross country. We're figuring that out as well. Sure.
So this will only help Castellan Springs Water Utility District, is that correct?
It would only help Castine Springs Water Utility District unless someone like Portland or
Yeah.
White House in the
How could it
future.
help Portland? Or
Because,
Westmoreland, that serving that area?
because the tank, we had actually looked at buying some water from White House, and there's an area up there that on the short term, we might buy some water from White House. But White House could serve a minimum amount of customers because they already have a contract where they're selling water to Portland out of the same tank that we would be utilizing. White House's tank is 1135, and the tank we're building would be about 1150 or 1160. So it would provide a little more pressure than what the existing tank in there now is.
I understand you needing this, but also, sometimes development, maybe in the Oak Grove area or somewhere like that. I know that the engineer has said, no, we can't provide water in certain areas because we don't have loop lines and pressure also. So all I'm getting at is, should we do this upgrade for Portland also? It's just a question. Not for you, but it's
Well,
just a
no,
question
that's
in my mind.
certainly something that you should consider. At some point, hopefully Castine Springs would build a water plant, and when they do that, then they would be in the position, if they had a tank up there, to provide some water for some of these folks. But the other side of that is that certainly you're always better to own and control your own water source. So yes, that would be something for Portland to look into.
Mr. Minute, I might be able, I'll defer to Commissioner Taylor. When we get all of them together, that was one of the things we were gonna bring up, was how can they interwork and get the best bang for our money? And so that's kind of why Mo's been holding off, is we couldn't get Westmoreland on the table yet because there's a little,
Well, I met in Westmoreland with the congressman, and it wasn't just Castaic Springs, it was Trousdale County, Macon County, City of Lafayette. Now, this is further down the road, Army Corps of Engineer stuff. But yeah, during the committee, that would be what the hopes would be. And one question I have for you, and you may know off the top of your head, is to go from what would be the difference to go from a 300,000 to a $500 million?
Well, there's a reason for that. Reason we're only doing 300,000. Initially we looked at doing a 500,000 gallon tank up there, but right now they have two existing tanks up there that are both, one's 200,000, one's 50,000. They're at the same elevation, and the 50,000 gallon tank sits way out on Womack Road. The Mount Vernon tank, the big tank, sits way over here, and it's being filled by the pump station. And the Mount Vernon tank essentially feeds by gravity and fills, and I know I'm getting too far in the weeds, but it feeds by gravity over there. Well, the Mount Vernon tank was built in 1996. It's 25 years old. It's never been rehabbed. It's in terrible shape. But they're in a really big conundrum in that if they take the Mount Vernon tank down, they take a third of their distribution system down. So in the future, what we were looking at, if we build a 300,000 gallon tank, you're 15 to 20 years before having to do anything to it. And then at that time, the phase 2 of this would be to build another 200,000 to 300,000 gallon tank behind it, beside it, which would give you the same amount of storage, but it would also allow you, anytime in the next 50, 70 years,
To refurbish those other ones.
to be able to take one tank down and put the other in service. So that was the reason behind that.
But, yes, sir. To answer it, Mr. Commander, for everybody, that was the big thing we kind of talked about, since we're gonna have some money and we're looking at hopefully hitting up with the new infrastructure stuff coming in, doing it in a way that all of them work together, so we get our best bang, kind of, so we don't ever have to worry about something, to loop another street in, that they're all legitimate somewhere, so. and like I said-
And
Yes, sir. Oh,
I just was saying, yeah, I was gonna say something Mr. Commendon said, is, you know, if we're gonna do, you know, remember we got way in the weeds with the fire department situation, where if we were gonna do it for one, we had to do something for the others, or vice versa. And I don't know what the legal process would be.
I may look.
Of how we can,
We're hoping
we
they'll
gotta have
figure
a
it out.
grant process for that to work, and we gotta get everybody on the same page.
They were really good. All the utility districts were great when they first came to the meeting for us. It's just they all kind of said, look, we're gonna have to have a lot more money to be able to do anything. Well, now we're at that junction where we have a lot more money, so we wanna get them to actually, I'll sit down again and kind of figure out the best master plan, because I will give all of them credit. They weren't trying, they weren't territorial that day. I don't think, no, I mean, everybody was about, let's make the best options, but they even said, hey, here's where we're limited. Portland was, you know, we're limited, we're gonna need 2 or 3 million for a pumping station. So everybody kind of had big ask, but I said ASK. And just to make sure, we wanted to get them together so we could see if there might be some ways to save some money. You know, okay, if we do this, how can we turn around and play off what they've done with Portland or with other places, so that we can kind of get it all working together. I know they're all separate utility districts, but there's none that says they can't help each other. And that's kind of what we're at right now.
We'd have to.
Did I say that wrong?
well, what I was gonna add to that is the process that we just hadn't closed out yet is the 2018 grant. So that, you know, once we get that closed out, we can also run that with, or add to that, in applying for the state GNRC grants like we've got so many years in the past before. And hopefully, if you know, if they're kicking in 15 million for fiber optic cable, maybe they'll kick in some millions for water in the areas where we need it.
It's not playing our hand yet.
And
Yeah.
let me add one thing to that. This 12-inch transmission line, you could fill 2 500,000 gallon tanks with that. So what that means is that your transmission line's in place, and in 15 or 20 years from now, or 10 years from now, this develops, then you simply upgrade those pumps to be 1 NGD pumps. The transmission line's in place, and you build a 700,000 gallon tank up there. You accomplish the same thing. But now they're only pumping in the middle of the summer about 15 hours a day to keep 250,000 gallon tank up, which means they're only using a couple 100,000 gallons a day during peak demand. So if we build a 500,000 gallon tank up there, it's just, you know,
We'll be fine.
you got dead water. So that's the reason behind that.
Is this something that we vote on tonight?
No, sir.
Or do
This
we
was-
wait until the whole plan, more of a whole plan is put
This was, Mr. Gray just wanted to present it to us,
Okay.
and I thought it was a great way to introduce it, so we all kind of have an idea of long-term and a big plan, and then when when we get the water group back up, we'll hopefully, sooner rather than later, have a presentation for y'all that's all the utility districts, what each one needs, and how we get the best bang for our buck on it.
We've got the RFQ.
Oh. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir?
the only thing is, Portland and Westmoreland is already up on the ridge, I'll call it. We're down here, and with the group thing, I guess we could, but we're gonna be pumping it from our system. So we could put a tank, they could put a tank out there to do it on their systems too. If it's all gonna come out of the same pot of money, because I don't think it would work all three together. What am I saying? I don't know how to explain it, because it's,
We gotta do a little finagling, I got you, sir.
yeah.
Does anybody else have any more questions for me?
On that point,
What was your name, sir? I apologize.
Brian Griffin at Dakota Davis.
Mr. Foster, you had a question, sir?
How many new customers with this service, this additional capacity?
This additional capacity, this needs to be done just to be able to maintain, this has to be done just to be able to provide service for the existing customers up there. You're adding 300,000 gallons, putting 300,000 gallons up there, and you're only using, I said 200, it's more like 180 during peak now, because they're keeping it up 250,000 gallons of storage. So,
A little less than double?
a little less than double, maybe a little more than double, So I think you're really more like 180 and you're going to 300. So, yeah, you're probably adding whatever that is, 60% or something when you do this. So that opens it up for you to do this development and for all this to grow on the top of the hill. And they recently implemented a developer's policy, which is going to allow them to be able to charge capacity fees. And hopefully when it comes time to build the next tank, they have the money to build the tank. That's the thought. That's something over the next 10, 15 years as this development occurs up there, they would use that money to build a tank. Is that
Yeah.
pretty, yeah.
And we got a capital fund now that we put money into to do some things. Not $4.5 million, but.
Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it, Mr. Gray. Thank you.
Did you have a couple more things?
Hey,
Oh, go ahead, sir. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, you're fine. And these are Rogana Road and Reese Road. Rogana Road is in the southwestern portion of their distribution system. And Rogana Road, essentially, there's some subdivisions in that area, and they have some flow problems in that area. So that would, essentially what you're looking at doing there, you're gonna run an 8-inch water line down Rogana Road from the 12-inch on 31E to Greenfield Lane. Got a 12, you're gonna tie it to a 6. So that loops the entire southwest portion of their system. And so that allows them for many, many years to be able to develop that down there and not worry about having flow and pressure problems. Again, they're getting in the same situation down there because they don't have big enough line sizes. They got a 6-inch feeding off a 12 that's feeding this whole area. So if you loop the 8, that gives you a secondary feed in there. And it also accomplishes, there's only one crossing of Bledsoe Creek now, and it's the 1/6 that feeds everything. And that's caused a lot of anxiety for them because if the 6 ever goes out, they've lost, 25% of their systems out of water. So that's what Rogana Road involves. Reese Road sits in the northeast portion of their system, and that outside of one area around Womack Tank, that's the highest portion of their system. It's about 10 feet lower there than an area around Womack Tank, but it's several residences in there. And essentially, you got 2 6-inch lines that are a dead end, and all the way around these 2 dead end lines are where your high spots are at. So you're going to loop that together in there to essentially do the same thing you're doing on Rogana Road. You're never going to have more than 30 pounds of pressure, but at 6 at night and 8 in the morning, instead of having 22, you're going to have 28. It's going to be.
And could you kind of explain, because y'all schooled me up that time on it, the difference in how important it is that we actually loop it so we don't have dead ends where we have to bleed off water and everything else?
It's, well, if you have a loop system, number one, if you ever have a line break, you have redundancy. You're not putting everybody out of water. If you have a line break here, you just feed through the back direction, you close the valve, and you just isolate a small portion of your system. You have very few people, if anybody, out of water if you have a loop system. So that's the first advantage. The second advantage is it greatly increases your flow. And flow, pressure's pressure, it's the elevation. But then you have friction losses, you have usage in the pipe. So if you can't get enough flow out there, you see really diminished pressures during peak usage. So you get more flow, that reduces that. And then the third thing is you waste an incredible amount of water in the summer months because you're flushing these lines if they're not looped, because you have a dead end. So you have stagnant water at the end of the lines. So that's really what the last 2 are about.
Y'all got anything else, Mr. Gray?
I don't think so.
Anybody else got any more
I've got a
questions?
little picture, we don't want to get to this shape, y'all pass it around.
Would you allow me to make a comment?
Yes, sir, I would love for you to make a comment, Mr. Hill.
Rumor is that we're close to Old Hickory Lake. And anywhere in Sumner County that don't have water, we ain't done our job over the last few years.
Thank you, sir.
Gary, want me to tell you?
Gary Pickard, excuse me. We've got some people on Reese Road, if you know where Reese Road's at, that have absolutely no water. We've got a lady that says that her daughter's building a brand new house, and she's so far along, no water. She's got electricity, but she's not gonna have any water. And we don't have a good way to get this lady or this family any water down Reese Road. So that's an area that they have zero water.
Can I ask a stupid question?
No question is stupid.
How do you get to the point of you get building permits and you get way under construction, almost done, before you realize you don't have some amenity?
That ought to been the contractors doing. Or, you
Or the real
know,
estate
you go out here and
person.
you buy a hunk of property and say, hey, I'm gonna build a pretty new $500,000 house on top of this hill.
Yeah.
So you hire you a contractor to build it, and they haul water in to lay you brick,
Sounds like to me they got a pretty good lawsuit on the contractor house.
so it's
When somebody, y'all know,
something they should have checked on.
when somebody says water's available, water's always available. It's just what it costs. I mean,
We just need your address for the.
No.
Oh,
Yours.
oh, behind you.
Here, Pickard.
Need your name
Gary
and address. What is it?
Pickard, Pickard.
And your address.
What's your first name? Gary?
Uh-huh.
And your address, please?
505 Branham Mill Road, Gallup.
And he's one of the board members also. And we've got Bucky May and Jeff Cooper there, that's our board members. I know what you was.
Yeah, just, thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Gray, thank you very much. All
Thank
right,
you.
that concludes my part, David.
Can I go ahead and skip down to the
You jump
uncollectible
wherever you need to.
reappraisal receivable first? Mr. Isabel said he had a meeting right after this,
Yep.
and
Let's
to
get
give
y'all
you
that.
kind of where we're at right now, let me tell you the amount. We have, out of $553,000 some odd dollars of reappraisal amounts due from the city, we've only collected $40,680, and I think the cities at this point, some of them at least, are disputing the reappraisal amounts.
Y'all remember this came up last year, it's where we had been paying it, and then John found out that we didn't have to pay it. so we
No,
quit.
they weren't paying the full
Yeah.
amount.
Yeah, so he got it worked out.
Yeah, here's the way it worked historically. We had two separate budgets set up, and it was just an arbitrary allocation of funds between the two budgets. Once the reappraisal grants went away that the state gave us, at that point, it made no sense to have two separate budgets. So we combined the budgets. You can look through here, you'll see a letter that I sent the cities to make them aware of the change. But what I wanted to start with is, this is also what went to the cities, was an Attorney General's opinion. And that's kind of what started the discussion. And they basically asked two questions. One is the code that referenced reappraisal cost share grant authority to a municipality to unilaterally contribute an amount less than one half the county taxpayers have spent. And the question is no, or the answer is no, they have to pay that. The city and the county may agree on a different amount. So y'all can agree on a different amount than what's right there. But they can't agree to pay a lesser amount, or they can't agree not to pay it. They don't have that authority. And then the second question is, if they don't pay, can we withdraw services? And they said, no, you still provide the services for them. So, which we've never mentioned to them that we would ever withdraw any service. Matter of fact, this year, for all the cities except for Hendersonville, we're actually picking up all of their ACV processing, that's tax relief. So we're going to process all of that for them to make their tax billing process a little simpler. The only reason why we're not doing Hendersonville is because they have an extra fee that they attach to the bill, and we don't have the programming to put that fee on our side. So we're gonna work with him next year and figure out a way to where we can do it for Hendersonville as well. But that's coming down the road. Also, to supplement this, a lot of the questions that they were asking, and this is kind of the rift between MTAS and CTAS. MTAS seems to think, you know, that you can't do this. CTAS says, well, yeah, you can. From the Comptroller's Office, Division of Property Assessments, their previous director, Tom Fleming, sent out this statement that talks about the reappraisal process. Because, you know, they're saying that, well, it says in the year that it's finalized. Well, reappraisal is an ongoing process. Everything we do every day is towards reappraisal. Our systematic review of properties, our recording of deeds, our updating of maps, everything builds up to the final valuation report that goes out in that 5th year. So he talks about that, and basically the way it had worked in years past is that it was billed annually, because if you bill them this times 5 in the final year, that's going to be even worse. And we've been billing annually since before I became assessor. So it's been done for a long time. So after that was the letter that I sent them in May of 2020 to explain the process, explain what we were doing. I actually did a seminar on this for assessors and assessor staff across Tennessee, working with CTAS to explain how we administer this program properly. And we gave them an estimation of what it would be. And that was, if you flip to the second calculation, the 1.5, that was an estimation that I made for them to kind of get them geared. It changed a little bit at 1.6, so the numbers did change a little bit, but they certainly were well aware of what was going to happen and how it affected them. To compare that to the year before, you can look at the one cost sheet that says current budget $695. Well, that's where we arbitrarily set up that reappraisal budget. So you can see what they paid last year. You know, we got 2 routes here, in my opinion, and like I told the cities, is I'm not the collector. By law, all I can do is calculate the numbers and I turn them over. And the county is the negotiating power at that point. So, you know, we got 1 or 2 options. They're going to have to pay. If we use legal means to pay, well, that encumbers funds, taxpayer funds. It's just not necessary. We need to work with them somehow and somehow reach an agreement. You know, I don't know if y'all want to go after the full amount. I don't know if you want to give them another year and say, hey, we'll agree to what you paid last year, but no, this is coming down the road. You know, they had time before they passed their budgets, but, you know, sometimes it doesn't make it down the food chain. And they don't hear it. So,
Chris, what I've heard.
any questions?
Go ahead, Paul.
I was gonna say, does that make, it sounds like what I'm hearing, that makes the most sense, is to, I mean, tell me what you think, get what we've gotten, and give them a deadline to say, here's what's coming in 12 or 24 months, or whatever the case is.
Yeah, next May, this is the bill you're going to get.
Yes.
Okay, so be ready for it. Budget for it because you need to incur your part of the reappraisal costs. I mean, it's the fair thing to do. We provide the service. They get a great rate of return on the revenues that are generated for the service.
Since there's a difference of opinion between MTAS and CTAS, sounds like caused part of this problem, if not the majority of it. Can we send it to our internal legal to look and see what their take is versus those 2 entities? Because the county does incur the cost. And nothing's been paid this year as far as reappraisal from several entities, or this past year, actually.
And could I clarify, those are the amounts
Do,
that are due for
Last year.
last year, and then now we have our current year, that's
Right.
basically doubling that amount that they're
this is the
not
amount.
quite
No,
prepared.
this is the amount.
That's the double.
This is the
that's
doubled
last year.
amount here, they've
Okay.
not paid, some of the cities have paid it, I think 3, and those cities right there have not. So 3 of your cities have paid, the remainder have not at this point. And I think, same thing, Mr. Isabel's heard the comment is MTAS is giving a different opinion on it than CTAS. And we have internal legal department too, so my thought process is turn it over to your internal legal department for their opinion and bring it back to budget. It's kind of my thought process.
One more question.
Go ahead, Paul.
Is the comptroller's office putting in their 2 cents on?
Well, they're standing on the letter that Tom, they said nothing's changed from this letter. And then we had the Attorney General's opinion. He basically said there's nothing else we can write to make it any more clear.
If the calculations are
Yeah.
correct, then all this will be
it's,
done
The
a
problem
couple of years
isn't
from
what
now.
the direction, it's the interpretation of that.
Right, and the
direction.
problem is, John's stuck between a rock and a hard place because he can't tell them, I'm not gonna send you the information if you don't pay your bills.
Yeah, it's,
So,
So it really takes one or two things. The county has to eat the cost or they have to take legal action.
And what is
That's
the
kinda where we're
MTS
at.
point of view? It's that they.
That it's calculated based on the old division, which was arbitrarily based, is my understanding.
The arbitrary reappraisal budget. Yeah. Which is just I put my field men in it, I put the vehicles in it, a few other miscellaneous expenses. Tried to, like I had office supplies over here, office supplies over here. It just didn't make sense. And the reality is all of those expenses are reappraisal expenses. Because everything we do in that office is towards reappraisal.
Right.
And, you can't identify one thing that we do that's not towards reappraisal.
I think the most prudent thing to do would be send it back to legal and let them look at it, work with Mr. Isabel to see about the interpretation versus seeing
let,
it.
I haven't had a chance to look into this in about 2 years, so let me pull it all back up and get out and kinda see where we are, because I wanna,
we have the luxury of time. They haven't paid us yet. It's not like they're gonna show up tomorrow with a check, so.
Yeah.
I would if everybody's comfortable with it, I would rather get all the facts so that way we can be sure whatever we do, we know we're 100%. And I mean, we know we're right because John's right in that 100%. But the way we implement it, so that way we can do it with full transparency and fairness.
And I'm just making you guys aware that there's a fairly good size receivable we have not collected, and at least a portion of it's in dispute. They're not disputing the whole amount, they're disputing somewhere around a little less than 50%, I do believe.
Just
Yeah, they just want to pay what they paid last year.
I like David's idea. Let Leah understand it, and maybe we can, if we have to vote on a resolution next month for the county commission to send.
Yeah, but that way that way when it goes in front of the county commission, no one can say anything about John, no one can say about us. We've done everything we could, our due diligence to be that way. Is everybody comfortable with that? We don't need a resolution for that, do we, Leah? We're just gonna hold off on it.
Send it back.
Yep.
Put it under old business next month.
Please, sir.
A is
Thanks,
something
John.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A is something that will need to go back to the county commission, and it will actually need to be put on the county's website. They have asked, because we have the refunding, and it's only good for 90 days, and we're extending it forward, we're looking to refund somewhere before December 1st, 2021 to 2022, and the 23 principal amounts for the 2013 bond. It was approved by the county commission and the refunding plan, but it needs to be updated. They've asked for me or Mr. Holt to make an update to the commission, and I'll give you the same update right now. The initial plan had a net present values savings estimate of $498.4. Currently, we're estimating in the plan, you're seeing now $573.5. The all-in or the TIC interest originally, because it's so short, 2 years, was 0.662%. Now we're looking at 0.384%. So we need to run this to the commission to do the update to get it extended. And then also the other thing, we're going to go ahead and start, just for information, start the bond rating agency the way we can, moving on if the interest rates move negatively. But if the interest rates do not move negatively, and you guys are going to do the, Resource Authority bonds, it would be a smarter move to actually do these together because of cost. So right now, we do need to have it refunded by December 1st to make the full savings, but we'll anticipate doing that at this point. But it would be advantageous to combine it with the Resource Authority. But the gist is, the numbers I gave you are the updates versus the old one, and I need to give a report to the county commission for the state's approval. They gave us approval subject to that.
So moved.
Second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously.
And if Miss Jessica can go to page 34 and 35, I believe, make sure I'm telling you the right page. That is the cash flows. I'm sorry, let's go to page 34 first, Miss Jessica. Is it one page up, I believe? Up in the direction. Oh, I'm sorry, you're on the right
It
page.
is, but-
This is, I'm sorry, right there. Go up just a little bit. I can't see
Oh,
this. Up that way. Down, whatever I'll call it. Right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the cash flows, basically the budget for the highway. Things have turned out better. They stayed because we did not estimate 1/12 of fund balance in the ending budget for the highway department. They have asked us to report to the state what we think it is versus what you would project based on last year. And then Ms. Harden's there too. Things are looking pretty good as far as the cash flows. That's all there is to say right now. And then the, item D, which is this page 36, is just saying the financial statements for June, July, and August, because we have closed our books in the next 2 months, will be on the website the morning of the county commission meeting for any county commissioner. I'm sorry, yes, item B just goes sees for information, but we can send
Item
that.
C, so moved.
Yeah, send that information.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you.
And D is telling you the financial statements are there. They're electronic, they're rather large. If any commissioner would like to have a copy, at any time they can request a hard copy, but they are on the website as quickly as possible. And we hate to kill trees, is the only reason we don't print them. Does anybody else have any questions? I think that's the end of my report, Mr. Chairman.
Old Business Election Commission, they're finally ready to hire their full-time employee. We told them they could do it 30 days ahead of time. Do we need a resolution on that, David?
Yes, it's attached. There is the actual sheet.
I so move.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Ms. Law Director, go ahead.
Since our last meeting, I have hired a law clerk. Y'all had told me to go forth and hire him. He has been at work now about 2 weeks. And then, the other issue that came up was, I wanted a little bit more money to try to pay Ben and, just because they're stuck kinda doing all sorts of crazy things.
Does he end up being part-time or full-time?
No, he's full-time.
So she needs the actual 15,000, the matching benefits and the health and dental, and that will require a resolution. We do not have the amounts in here, but we can work those numbers up for the commission, because it probably needs to move on forward.
Thank you, sir. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Highway, only thing I'd ask on this one, this is, Miss Judy need to move, oh, I'm sorry.
You
missed budget.
missed budget,
Oh, did I?
education.
Oh, gosh, yeah,
Education.
thank you. Education, group and approve 1 and 2, so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously, thank you. B, Miss Judy, this is 38,000, and we let everybody else move things within their budget. They had a little bit of concern at roads that it would look bad if they were moving asphalt or whatever else. We've given Miss Judy about 1.9 or 8 million extra this year to work outside of maintenance and means for asphalt. That's not gonna be an issue. We've also got her super aggressive plan of doing 72 miles of road this year, with the idea that we will issue a short-term bond, and I talked to Brock about it. They'll go through the money they've got now, earliest maybe January, February, probably the spring. He said at that point they would need a little bit more money to finish out the year so they can continue doing the hopefully 72 miles. Rather than do it the way it came from roads, I would just ask that we simply allow Ms. Judy to move it within her budget, and that way it doesn't contribute to maintenance and means or cause any other grief.
Okay. Second. Motion.
Thank
Can I
you.
speak?
Go ahead, Mr. Hinton.
We kind of realized that this was unorthodox when we sent it over here, but anytime you start talking about taking money out of asphalt, everybody kind of gets a frown on their face. That's a bad policy and has been for years. But I further understand that you basically produce a format for people to get budgets that you can't, you're not very likely gonna come up with an increase in this budget, but you give some prerogatives for people to move money within that budget if they have it somewhere. Now, if this hadn't been concerning hot mix or blacktop, there probably wouldn't have been much flinching if this had been going from gravel or somewhere into this budget. We wouldn't pay much attention, but the flag pops up when you talk about blacktop. And none of you are old enough to remember, but I can tell you back when we used to plow up blacktop roads because we didn't have enough money to put them back down, you know. So there, and we had a pretty thorough discussion of this, and we voted overwhelmingly to send it to this body and ask for you all to go through it to see if you could provide where we wouldn't have to lose asphalt money out of this budget. We get very uncomfortable when that, and the whole committee does. But if in fact the money can come from another source, why, I don't suppose anybody in the road committee would be too disturbed about that.
Hey, that's what I said to everybody.
Can I speak on the 5-year average, and maybe this will kind of help?
Go ahead, David.
If you take the $38,000 from the capital, it will, because it comes from property tax, increase the 5-year average. And I know you're temporarily using $38,000 of asphalt. You put the COVID money in there, the COVID money came from Fed, so it does not. When you put in federal, state, or debt proceeds, then it does not create maintenance of effort. So for instance, Miss Judy received, I think it was around $900,000 COVID this year. So you're talking later on this year, she's going to need a larger infusion. Was it $1 million, $2 million, $3 million? How you give the highway larger or any kind of infusions of cash without increasing the maintenance of effort. Say, for instance, you wanted to get the roads that are on the back list off, but you didn't want to create a long-term huge maintenance of effort. The way to do it, because we have a fairly healthy debt service fund, we can go January internally, because it won't cost you anything. We can go to market, we could do a $3 million note with a local bank and, report to the state and everything that's required for 6 months, and you would pay the 6 months of interest, but you could take $3 million out of the debt service by paying it back, put it the highway, and it would not increase your maintenance of effort because it's actually debt proceeds. That was what we're discussing. That's the big difference of how you get your asphalt money back versus this money. That's the big distinction. Did that make any sense at all, or did I kind of run around the?
No, you're good.
In other words, what you're going to do is you're going to take $3 million, issue a short-term note, pay interest rates that are real low to a local bank, and then you'll pay it back from debt service, which has more than enough to pay the $3 million back. And what you'll do, you'll give the highway department $3 million for asphalt clear, and it won't kick up their maintenance of effort. And then say next year, if they needed an additional 1, 2, or 3 to kind of get this back road list, you could keep doing that as long as you had available proceeds in your debt service. Your debt service fund is not huge, but it does have some funds that can be utilized at this point safely.
I probably didn't make this clarification, but I don't think anybody on the road committee disagreed that she needed the equipment that she was asking for to put. And if we're gonna do that many roads, you can't do that with wore out equipment, and that's what some of this equipment is for, to help do the roads that money's gonna become available for. So again, you got somebody back here wanting to talk, I'm sorry.
I get a
Oh, go ahead.
call about once a week on the road in my district. So I want as many road paid as we can get paid, all over the county. But that's road red flags to me, taking money from asphalt and putting it in capital equipment, and it always will. Because we have, every year, we have a capital equipment budget process that we go for and ask for stuff. So it always will, it ain't personal, it's no one person. But I saw July, us come in here and ask for capital equipment. And I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything, it's no disrespect towards anybody, but I can't explain this when people are beating their brains out going down some of these roads. So,
I can if you want to, just tell me to call me.
Yeah.
I'm good. So, but I appreciate and Miss Judy, I really appreciate you and Brock and everybody and what you've done in preparing everything so that we can do 70 some odd miles a year until we get all the county roads redone. in a 4-year, and I know it might take a minute more than 4 years, but that's a really aggressive plan, and we thank you for getting everything ready and being willing to do it, because that's a big commitment.
And Commissioner Taylor is correct. Yes, that money is earmarked for capital outlay and for equipment, and it is used for equipment. Last year, we replaced our paper.
Yeah.
The problem is that we're not buying pickup trucks.
Oh, I know.
We're gonna get 2 dump trucks out of that. If we could get them, I mean, you're talking about, we can't even get concrete pipe right now because that's the way things are. They can't get raw material to make oval concrete pipe.
Can get better.
But you're looking at $150,000 per dump truck for handling. You know, so that money is, I mean, we're grateful for it, don't misunderstand me, but it doesn't go very far. When you start spending that kind of money for a piece of equipment, it doesn't take long for it to get exhausted.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
On my way down here this morning at 7 o'clock, met a dump truck with a track hoe or backhoe going on a trailer, 2 more dump trucks. Everywhere I go, Sumner County Highway Department is replacing tiles that go across the road. And you've got to do all that before you can pave them, because you don't want to pave one and dig that back up. But I think the Highway Department does an excellent job in getting prepared for the paving.
Well, and also, just, if y'all aren't aware, we don't get a lot of snow here. But when we do, they actually have a salt, something prepared to deliver salt that they made themselves, that they manufactured themselves, and they created. And they didn't spend any, it was just in-house resources because they didn't have the money. So they do some pretty inventive stuff out there. So, but all that to say, any more questions? All in favor?
Nah.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. All right.
The next item is the COVID-19 vaccination campaign, and this came to the benefits committee because the county currently is having issues with several employees that are unvaccinated, and we're having a lot of issues with employees actually being out in several of our departments. I think ECC, the jail, several in the administration building we've had out in the last couple of weeks. They approved one of 2 things, or requested one of 2 things. One, that $500 per employee be paid going forward if the employee takes both the vaccines, or if they've already taken the vaccine, they take the booster shot when it's available. The reason being is, if you read the federal guidelines, it says that vaccination campaigns can be done, but they have to be able to, according to their words, increase the likelihood of an individual taking the vaccine or the time they would take it, which I would. So we can't pay employees that's already taken the COVID vaccine, but you can pay them forward. And this is a request for from the insurance committee, and I think their other thing was, if it was not approved out of this, they were wanting to do $200 per employee out of the insurance trust that was on the insurance for taking the vaccine. But this would probably be more advantageous as far as funding for the county.
Because this will give employees that aren't on the plan, also.
And hopefully it'll help some with some of the staffing issues and stuff in the jail. They've had a lot of COVID over there, and we already have staffing issues in the jail, significant staffing issues. Before COVID, we had significant staffing issues. This has gotten worse. They have a large challenge. And ECC's pretty close by.
EMS as well.
EMS is down 14 coming the other day.
Make the motions. And you're going.
Second.
All right.
Can I speak to that?
Yes, ma'am, go right ahead.
I think it's really bad policy for any company or governmental agency to make a policy of paying people to do something that probably they really don't want to do, or they would have done it by now. I haven't taken the vaccine, and if I work someplace, I would be offended if you offered me that. Because it's like, well, you're too stupid to make up your mind. We're just gonna have to pay you to do what's right. I think that's wrong.
Ma'am, if you wouldn't mind, we need your name and your address.
Sandra Kelly, P.O. Box 40, Gallatin.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your thoughts.
Where would the money come from again, David?
The American Recovery Funds,
That 37 million?
32.
Oh, yeah, think.
32. It's 37, you're
37.
correct, I'm sorry.
All right, here's the thing I would bring up.
It ain't now.
If you take out the political part of it, which is almost impossible at this stage, but the information we've gotten from different sources was that there were some insurance providers that were looking at increasing rates for people, much like they used to have for if you were smoker versus non-smoker, vaccinated versus non-vaccinated. I'm gonna say this from just a fiscal point of view. Nothing but numbers. The investment of having closer to 100% vaccination versus the cost of even 2 or 3 people in a 45 to 50-day stay in the ICU is vastly different.
There's only 2 ways to get people to do it. One is the carrot, or 2 is the stick. And the feds are trying the stick right now.
Yeah,
And we've all
and I
heard
don't,
yesterday.
and I don't,
And that's not
I
what
think
we're
we
trying
can,
to
I
do.
think we're all in agreement that we're not wanting to mandate people, force people. This is simply an incentive, hoping to keep our insurance rates down, to be quite frank. If,
Keep the jails.
if our insurance goes up, I don't know if y'all, I'm sure some of y'all remember, some of you don't, you weren't on the commission then, but we had to do $3 million last go around in 2012 because our insurance had gotten so out of whack related to the rates. I would rather not have to have that sneak up on us again. I don't think it would, but I still don't want to have to turn around and raise taxes because our insurance rates have gone so high.
So this is not mandatory, it's just
No,
incentive.
it's completely
That's all it
voluntary.
is.
It's an incentive.
It's an incentive to try and honestly, I'm hoping that when they want to raise our rates, that this will be something we can kind of legally look and say, we've taken actions to try and prevent it, so that way we can argue about the rates a little bit more.
Absolutely.
And having talked with 1 or 2 people that know insurance, that used to be on the commission, that not a terrible idea to set ourselves up so that we have 1 or 2 things in our arsenal when they try and raise our rates, because it's gonna happen.
Well, I agree with her back here. I mean, I don't wanna beat anybody over the head
Oh,
and
no,
say, you
absolutely
have
not.
to do this, but giving them an incentive or a choice.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Go right ahead, sir.
This would be a legal question. If, as the county, we incentivize through money, and there are adverse effects, as we know, with bears, there have been many adverse effects from these COVID injections. Is there a liability legally if they come back and sue us? Because the big pharma cannot be sued.
The answer I got, and real quick, your name and address, sir.
Oh, David Klein, 398 Brandon Mill Road.
What was the last name?
Klein, K-L-E-I-N.
Okay, thank you.
But the answer I got when I asked that, because it came up in another city, was that once it had FDA approval, that kind of took away any liability for any organization that did or didn't have to get the shot, because that was the standard they used for vaccine, any other type of vaccine, measles, whatever it might be. And I can't remember which one, but when it got approved, I guess about a month or so ago, in retrospect, that's what we learned later. The reason the federal government hadn't tried to mandate it sooner was because it hadn't been approved by the FDA yet, and that was a hang-up. But yes, ma'am, as far as my understanding, and Ms. Denham, you jump in and correct me.
Well, and what we're doing, we're looking at it the same way as we did with hepatitis C. About 20 years ago, the hepatitis C vaccinations came out, and we offered it to all employees. And what it does, if you've gotten it, and then you get some sort of breakthrough hep C issue, it becomes a workers' comp claim that we can make. If we offered it to you and you didn't take it and you get hepatitis C, you're on your own. So that's exactly
Was
how.
there a financial incentive for the Hep C?
Back at the time, early on there was, a long, long time ago, gosh, that's been 89, gosh, that's been 30 years now. But.
Well, what if you have an uprising of the people that already took it and said, hey, I didn't get my money, and they all want money?
And that's one of the things, that's what Mr. Long was addressing, it was.
I go forward.
You can't go back and take people if they've already taken the vaccine, but you can pay them if they take a booster.
The only reason I don't think you can go back and pay them is because the federal money says if you do a vaccination campaign, it has to increase the likelihood of vaccination or how quickly you'll take it. So if we've already taken it, there's no increased likelihood.
But David, I think there's some debate about that. We'll have to look into that.
That's what the federal regs say.
Well, I know, but there's some.
Mr.
other
Gammon
things.
had something.
Well, first of all, excuse me, I took the vaccine, and
if you offered me $500 because I took it, I wouldn't take the $500 because I didn't take the vaccine for $500. I took the vaccine for my family, my wife and myself's own safety and all of my family. And I think everybody should want to take the vaccine to help society to get through this and to get it over with, but I don't agree with paying them to take it. So I don't think I could support paying somebody to take the vaccine. Matter of fact, in our office, I was the only one for most of the time that even took the vaccine, and I don't understand that. I don't understand why people don't want to take it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else have? All right, any more discussion on it? All right, I don't think it'll be unanimous regardless, so either way. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Me. So how many was that to?
That as,
Okay, is that gonna need a second reading?
yes, ma'am, it will.
Okay.
That's what I say, since it,
6-1.
yeah, since it is not a unanimous decision, it will need a second reading, so we'll need to move it on to next month. So,
Did we skip B?
What was B?
did we skip B?
One B?
Yeah,
Station
we did.
camera.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you-
Oh, yeah, this, I make the motion for B, and what this is, if you're familiar with Big Station Camp Boulevard, it was what Mo was describing, it's one of those roads that everybody hates. At one point it was Hendersonville's, at one point they gave it back to us, and then we didn't have it. We have a little part of it, they've got a little part of it. If we come up with 35,000, it will contribute to get everything paved. Much like we've done in other things where we say it's for the greater good, 35,000 will get one of our major thoroughfares paved. And I have a feeling that there's a few people at the table that probably wouldn't get as many calls about it. Need a second, yes, sir?
Remember, Mr. You can correct
Are you-
me if I'm wrong.
Are you
Wait a
second,
minute,
Mr. Foster?
Huh?
Are you second?
Yes. I'll
Okay,
second,
then
but I got a
go
question.
ahead. Yes, sir.
Wasn't it 2 or 3 years ago that Hendersonville refused to do their part of it and we
Yes.
paved up to the
Yes.
county line?
Yes.
So what
What
is
happened
it, what are
is,
we, what extra are we picking up now that,
Well, the city of Gallatin contacted me and said they were contracting Rogers Group to pave their portion. Would we be interested in getting our portion done by Rogers Group as well? And the reason why we were is because of the traffic control and that bridge as you approach 386,
Okay.
goes across the road. All right, that being said, we did our portion. Hendersonville was offered the same thing. You want to get your part done? No, we don't have the money. So that's what has led us to now. Gallatin asked Hendersonville to de-annex that because Southeastern Development is going to develop the land or is developing the land next to Lakeland Drive, which is on the Gallatin side of Big Station Camp.
right,
So Gallatin asked Hendersonville to de-annex it so they can annex it, and which Hendersonville has done, but now Gallatin has annexed the land that Southeastern is developing, but nobody wants the road because it's all to pieces. And not only can you not just resurface it, it's got to be milled before you can resurface it. And so that is an extra cost, and I'm not sure how much of that letter has been accomplished. I'm not sure how much of that
Yeah.
has been accomplished. There's a lot of things that need to be checked into before, and this is my opinion, before Sumner County gets into an agreement with Hendersonville, because it's first got to be milled. Does that include that? Then it's got to be striped afterwards, and the shoulders have got to have some attention. How much of that is included in that? And, we just don't have it at the highway department, and they have contacted me, and I told them, I said, we're not going to get involved, and it is very, very political, so that's.
Could we take it off the reappraisal?
Could I speak to that?
Yes, sir, you go ahead, Mr. Hinton, and then we got Mr. Tinsley after that.
I was sitting here thinking that the highway commissioner was going through a comedy skit over there, describing this project that we got in front of us, because nobody can make this kind of stuff up. You know, they take a road from us and they annex up to the ditch line on both sides and leave us the road. You know, they put in big subdivisions and just come up to the ditch line and stop. So this goes on all the time. But now, I kind of agree with her, and we have an understanding with the county executive that he will be the last check that's written. I mean, everybody needs to understand that if you want to make that part of it.
Ms. Denham knows, and just so, I apologize and thank you. Mayor Holt was very specific that in this resolution, several things had to happen if then, before we ever got close to writing a check, and they were gonna be written into it. So I, thank you, Mr. Henry. I forgot about that.
You can appreciate the fact that the people that drive on this road are beating their vehicles all to pieces. And we fuss about the trucks. If you bought any ton-and-a-half truck license plates lately, they pay a pretty good chunk of money into this little pot to get your roads maintained. So everybody's hurting on this situation. And because of the history of it, if people had done what they said they was gonna do back when they said they would do it, we wouldn't have the road in the shape because we're the only one that done that, and our end of it's in good shape. So it kind of stings a little bit to talk about taking a piece of money and putting back into the same project that somebody else was already supposed to have finished, like we did ours. So ain't nobody happy about it. I don't believe it'll ever happen.
Oh,
I
there's
don't
some
believe it ever
skepticism about all the ifs being done before they get to us. Mr. Tinsley?
Two things. First, I drive on this road every single day and I've lost 2 tires to it, so we need to get it paved some which way or the other. Second, I spoke with some friends in Gallatin that were kind of involved in this. If you de-annex, we're going to annex. And there was a caveat to that I think should be explored by somebody, probably not us, but somebody. It's my understanding that Hendersonville was supposed to do some improvements to it when they de-annexed it. And they didn't, they just let it go. So I wouldn't put all the blame on Gallatin not wanting to take it in because
That's right.
there were promises that were made that weren't kept
Exactly right.
when it was de-annexed by Hendersonville. And I would put, Hendersonville probably needs to pony up and pay a lot more of this than, what is it, 1/15 of, of the amount, because they're the ones that let it deteriorate, and the mayor's trying to
12.5%.
fix the problem with everybody
Oh,
else's money.
50%, so
Mr.
1/8.
Chairman,
Oh, wow.
Yes, sir, go ahead, Jerry.
so.
1/4 of 1/2.
I was one of the, obviously dissenting voices on the Highway Commission regarding this. Hendersonville had this road for 21 years, over 2 decades, and they failed to pave it. They let it go to pot, literally. Gallatin's actually done their portion of it previously, and so has the county. This is just irresponsible growth and irresponsible leadership, in my opinion, on the city of Hendersonville on doing this, offloading this and leaving. I feel bad for the citizens, but at the same time, if Gallatin wanted it and Hendersonville offloaded it, those 2 entities should be paying for it, and the county should not be involved, is my opinion. We just have no business in this deal. It's just we're having to pay for somebody else's mistakes, and we just need to stop paying for somebody's irresponsible growth and irresponsible mistakes in this aspect. And so I'm vehemently opposed to this deal, and I agree with the law director's assessment on this when she wrote to the city of Gallatin, as I asked her about this about a month or so ago. And I just think Gallatin wants that road bad enough, and Hendersonville does. I mean, again, if Commissioner Tinsley talked about if Hendersonville didn't fulfill obligations, then that's definitely a shame on Hendersonville for that, and Gallatin should be upset, rightly so, about that. So I understand their predicament, but I disagree with this. Just want to voice that opinion. We should not be in this at all, and this is not our business. It's not our problem. So I would encourage everybody to vote no on this. But if it comes to next week, I'll be a solid no on it.
That, again, I'm not overly confident that all the quality, Ms. Denham, go
Well,
ahead.
and I'm almost to the point because, this letter was sent to us saying this is what we're proposed. We've not seen anybody else's declaration either.
That's right.
What if we defer this a month and see if we can get more information about it? Because
Some confirmation from the other parties
from the
involved?
other parties, because us tying up
Let's move it over.
$35,000 that David's got an earmark for something when we don't even know if it's gonna go that way, I'm.
It may sit there for a year or 2.
Well, you can move it to old business and they'll give you another month.
Luke?
Speaking on we haven't heard from anybody else. I don't know if I was the only one to receive this email, but I did receive an email this weekend from David Lucky outlining the entire, his kind of side of the agreement. So
Okay, I didn't get that.
I just sent that to you, Lynn.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think
that's
there's
not the-
another entity that's involved that says yes, we're willing to do this.
Oh, I'm not worried, I'm confident Dave will do what he's supposed to.
Yeah,
It's-
I am too,
I think there's
I just
one
think
element that we're all questioning.
I feel the doubt that Hendersonville fulfills their part.
I wasn't gonna say that.
I will.
Okay, so we'll then send it to old business. let her
Yep,
check
sent
it
to
out.
old business, everybody good with that?
Okay.
All right, sounds good.
Could I ask one question about that? Would that be possible? Just a quick question.
Actually, if you don't mind, sir, we will right afterwards.
Okay,
Because
sure.
it's been tabled and moved on with, all right.
Yeah, number 3 is page 67. Can you go down to page 67, Jessica? These are carryovers from last year. From the one that was sent to you, the bond carryover for the courthouse has been changed to 14 to 13 point odd some $1 million. I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that. There's a few more expenditures that came in after we worked these numbers up. So this is the accurate amount. What this represents is things such as bond proceeds, capital project proceeds, and other projects that's approved, but they did not get under contract and/or are sitting there to finish the project, such as the Justice Center.
Make the motion for 3 and 4.
And number 4 is just POs that are.
Thanks, Paul. Is that it? Perfect.
Number 5 is just donations to the sheriff's department.
I gotta do 3 and 4 real quick. Any
I second.
discussion? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 3 and 4 pass unanimously. Jump into 5, David.
5 are 2 small contributions. I'm sorry, the first one's a small contribution of $1,000 for uniforms. Number 2 is a refund, actually. I'm sorry, for the contribution.
All right. Number 5, make a motion, we approve. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass unanimously.
C1A is Miss Harden's transfers. It will need to go to the commission because it's between matrix
So moved.
categories.
Yep.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass unanimously, and that can go on.
Right. Number 2 does not need to go to the county, county commission. The first one's for finance. We have a consult line items that's for training and for implementing the Kronos. Kronos has been slowed down. We're waiting on the consolidated dispatch, but we do have an employee that's retiring that's got a lot of vacation payout, and we need to bring another employee in. So I'm asking to transfer $6,000 to pay out the vacation, the way I won't have a gap in service.
Group and approve 3 or 2A and B.
And EMS is a
Yeah.
promotion.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Number 3 is between line items. I need your approval, but these are the ones I go ahead and do on your authority during the month. It's an envelope. But it does need approval.
Oh, entertain a motion.
So moved.
And a second. See Brian down there. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass unanimously. And Ms. Denny, anything crazy on the tax refunds?
No.
$2? That's funny.
I know,
$3.
I'm usually they don't take the effort to write the letter for something like that.
For Office Depot.
Yeah.
And
Bluegrass Country
Had a motion
Club.
from Mr. Amanda to group and approve.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nipper. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Pass unanimously. Thank you all. One more last motion. Brian,
Yeah.
let's get out of here. And I appreciate it. I was it's long, but good discussion.
Well, maybe not, I hit the wrong button.